The Haunted Texas series is taking over Talk About the Hill Country. We will be here every weekday morning from October 21st to October 31st. If you miss a story, hear it on Halloween night starting at 6 p.m. The broadcast is being carried on KNAF AM 910 and KFAN 107.9 Texas Rebel Radio. Our sponsor is the Mason County Historical Society. These eerie, sometimes gory, and always fascinating haunted Texas tales are being brought to us by historians and educators from the Texas Historical Commission, the Texian Blog, and the Texas Center at Schreiner University. These Texas tales are true to life and death, so listener discretion is advised. Now settle back and enjoy HC Broadcasting's presentation of Haunted Texas.
Howdy, y'all. Ben the Texian here. I work at the Texas Center at Schreiner University, but Texas isn't only my job, it's my hobby, which makes it the perfect job for me. One of my hobbies wrapped up in my love of Texas is collecting Texas folklore, and some of that folklore, of course, are ghost stories. And since we are in the midst of spooky season, I'll be sharing one of those stories with y'all today. What Jean Lafitte left behind. This story first saw print in the Houston Post around the turn of the 20th century. It featured a man named Marion Meredith, who had been born in Texas during the days of the Revolution and was now a very old man and nearing death. He had to get a story off his chest before he met his maker, though. It seems that some decades before, during the days of Reconstruction, Marion lived in Port Neches and was a student of all the stories of Jean Lafitte and his supposed treasure that lay awaiting in all sorts of spots all over the region. As it often happens with people obsessed with such tales, Marion came into possession of an old map from Mexico that had directions to a massive cache of gold that Lafitte himself supposedly buried. Mexico was most likely where Lafitte met his doom, whatever that doom was. It was certainly where his partner in crime, his brother Pierre, now lay buried. But upon the map in French, not Spanish, a warning was inscribed. The ink looked different from the rest of the map, more brown in color, perhaps written in blood. Once he had it translated, the words said something along the lines of, "Beware for those who search for what is mine. I have left it well guarded." This was sobering. The handwriting did seem to match the one or two samples he had seen of the famed pirate's John Hancock. Yet, though he was thoroughly entranced by legends, he was not one to believe in ghosts or supernatural things. So he began to ask around for someone who knew the part of Sabine Lake he needed to search, someone he could trust not to murder him if they found gold. He chose a boyhood friend of his, a man he never named in the newspaper article, but we shall simply name Robert. He knew Sabine Lake and all the region around it like the back of his hand. They had served together in the war and had that bond of unbreakable trust that only members of the Brotherhood of Battle can understand. So, Marion and Rob headed out to Sabine Lake to find what they could find. They had no plans to stay there and dig into the wee hours of the night, so they began early in the day and did their best to follow the directions upon the old map. Both had been financially destroyed by the war, and this gold would help them start a new life, rebuilding what had been shattered. They didn't find it that first day, nor the second. It took them almost a week of searching the region, always turning back near sunset, before they finally found something. It was an old spade, which seemed to match up with where the map said the treasure may be. It had been there for quite a while. The wood had completely rotted away, and the iron head was half devoured by rust. Then they began to notice other landmarks on the map in the far distance and figured they must be getting close. It was afternoon. The sun was high. They cut their way through waves of reeds and other high grass in a broad circle around the spade until they found what they were looking for, a small island within the marsh with a solitary tree upon it. The growth surrounding the island had grown lush since the days of Lafitte, and the water had rearranged about it, so it was no longer as isolated and obviously an island as it once was. They made their way towards it, hearts in their mouths. Within the tree was a compass, an old ship's compass, placed in a knot of the tree, which then proceeded to grow right around it, making the compass a permanent part of the gnarled thing. It was broken. The arrow didn't point north, it pointed south, towards the ground. Marion and Robert embraced, laughing. This had to be it. They eagerly set to work, taking turns plunging their shovels into the dirt. Not far down, they hit something solid. Their eyes gleamed, mouths salivated, and they both dug frantically to unearth what they had hit. It was a skull. It was a skull. They paused, then started digging again, but more gingerly now. More bones appeared, and before they were done, they found a whole skeleton laid out before them. Scraps of clothing lay wrapped around some of the bones, clothing obviously not of their era, and when they tried to examine them further, crumbled into dirt in their fingers. As they tried to lift the skull, it cracked in their hands, and an old lead musket ball fell from the interior. Obviously, someone had been executed here. They looked at each other, their eagerness a little dampened. But when they realized that this meant the gold was likely there and had never been disturbed, they tossed aside their fear, along with the bones, and began digging once more. It took much longer before they hit something solid again. By now it was late afternoon and approaching evening, but they paid no mind. Their brains blazed with gold fever, and it seemed like their treasure map was the 1 in a million that was a real McCoy. This time, the solid thing they hit seemed to be rectangular, like a lid. Their breath came quick. Their hearts thundered in their chests. They dug around the lid and revealed the top of one of the biggest sea chests they had ever seen. They dug and dug around it, each clod of dirt thrown wildly behind them, revealing more and more of the chest. Now they saw a lock and chains. Now they saw intricate engravings at each corner of the top of the chest. They kept digging and digging, their shoveling becoming sloppy as their minds teetered on the brink of delirium. Marion slammed his shovel hard into the dirt once more, and this time it slammed into something hard. He fell back, roaring in agony. He had sprained his wrist. Maybe broke it. It was swelling quickly. Robert told him to take a break. He'd keep on digging. Marion nodded, out of breath, and his mind pulsing with pain. He climbed out of the now fairly deep hole and went to get a swig of water and to wash the sweat from his face, the back of his neck. That's when he noticed that the sun was setting. Great crimson and violet banners stained the sky, and the sun, now like a great red eye, played on the rim of the ocean. Digging in a hole guarded by a skeleton was not a great place to be at night, and it would be soon falling upon them. He called out to Robert that night was falling fast. The reply came that they were too close to stop now and to go ahead and light the lanterns they had brought with them. Marion didn't have a good feeling about the situation now that he was no longer caught up in the digging, but he did as Robert had ordered. He went to his packs and began digging through them. He could hear the constant rhythm of a shovel hitting dirt, scooping, and the pitter-patter of falling dirt as it went sailing out of the hole. It took longer than normal to light the lanterns with one hand, but just as he finished, the sun vanished beneath the waves, as if some command had been ordered by some god of the night. All the night things immediately began their course, and the wind picked up. The bloody banners were now gone from the sky, and the stars flared faintly. The wind hissed through the marsh grass like a hiss of 1,000 snakes, and Marion shivered. And he suddenly realized that the sound of Robert's digging had gone silent. Robert? Nothing. Robert? You all right? Why'd you stop digging? Nothing. But the hissing of the wind and the grind of the locusts. Marion's voice broke. Robert! Answer me! Nothing. Nothing. But the crickets and the frogs and the light plops of creatures diving into water. He gingerly picked up his lantern and began to step towards the hole. For the first time since the war, he felt fear's icy hand squeezing his heart. He crept closer and closer. Somewhere in the distance, something like a panther screamed. Robert! Nothing. Marion was now near the edge of the hole, yet he trembled and couldn't force himself to look in. He was breathing fast. His legs shook violently, as they had the first time he had had to take on enemy fire, awaiting the bullet that could have had his name on it. He tried to look over the ragged lip of the hole, but could not move from where he stood. The wind now seemed to shriek in his ears, and he saw distant lights like flickers of blue candle flame dancing in the waters, slowly moving in their direction. A wild scream of horror, ripped raw and bleeding from the very soul of being, stabbed at Marion's brain as Robert shot out of the hole, scrambling with deranged terror, frothing at the mouth, eyes wild and screaming. For God's sake, run! Robert dashed past Marion, who stumbled after him, doing his best to follow his friend through the dark. Robert ran madly through the grass, falling into depressions, into water, never stopping as Marion struggled to keep up. By some miracle, they found their boat, and Robert began to row wildly, almost leaving Marion behind on the shore. He did not speak. He did not stop rowing until they were far, far, far away from the treasure pit. Marion tried to get Robert to talk about what had happened. When he finally talked, all he would say in reply was, I saw hell and all its terrors. Please don't ask for more. And he began to weep into his chest. Of course, neither of them went back after such an experience, both feeling lucky to have not left their own skeletons behind in the hole, along with their souls. Robert began drinking heavily. Sometimes, when he and Marion were in their cups, Marion would try to get Robert to finally reveal what he had seen. And he would refuse angrily. If you are my friend, ask me of that no more. I still have nightmares, and I drink to keep them at bay. Robert drank himself to an early grave. Marion felt great guilt over this, of course, and so told the story to the Houston Post as a confession of sorts, seeking absolution through story, and as a warning to any who may happen upon the hole that still lay out there. More and more construction in the area would make the discovery inevitable, he thought, and he wanted to warn any who might happen upon it and unleash something that would send their minds spiraling into madness. As far as I know, no one has ever found the spot again. I think one would have heard of more experiences like Marion's if it had been. Perhaps the great hurricane of 1900 filled it with water and sucked all the treasure and pirate bones out into the Gulf, burying them deep with Davy Jones. Or maybe they still lie out there under several 100 feet of mud, waiting for some treasure seeker with more courage than brains, or some construction company building some new apartment monstrosity to house the never-ending stream of outsiders moving to Texas. Maybe they will uncover the remains of Lafitte's cursed gold and will let loose something that modernity has no weapon against. Pleasant dreams.
Attention Hill Country residents! Join the Mason County Historical Society for our annual meeting on November 22nd at 6 p.m. in the Stribley Room of the Mason Library. This year, we're thrilled to welcome geologist Brian Hunt from UT Austin, who will take us on a fascinating journey through the geology of Mason County. Discover how our landscape evolved from ancient seas to the era of dinosaurs and even mammoths. Bring your rock samples for identification and enjoy refreshments as we delve into our local history together. Everyone's welcome, no membership required. For more information, visit us on Facebook or at masonmuseums.org. Let's find out together what's under our feet. Don't miss this enriching experience with your community. This has been a special presentation by HC Broadcasting, our Haunted Texas series for the Halloween season. First, thank you to our presenters, Ben Freiberg of the Texian Blog and the Texas Center at Schreiner University, and Shannon Smith of the Texas Historical Commission and Fort Martin Scott. A huge shout out to our sponsor, the Mason County Historical Society. If you love local Texas history, be sure to participate in the Mason County Historical Society's annual meeting on November 22nd at 6. It'll be held at the Stribbling Room in the Mason County Library. Find out what's under your feet, geologically speaking. Check out their website at masonsmuseum.org. Want to get on the regular calendar for Talk About the Hill Country? Call 830-997-2197, email knafnews@gmail.com, mail to P.O. Box 311 in Fredericksburg, or stop by the studio at 304 East San Antonio Street. Hope you enjoyed your Haunted Texas.